Every morning, 14 African nations wake up and pay a tax to a country thousands of miles away. A tax they did not choose. A tax they cannot escape. A tax that keeps them poor while making another nation rich. You have never heard of this tax. Your politicians have never spoken about it. The media never covers it. But it is the single most effective system of economic control in the modern world. And France is the architect. Think about your phone, your car, your nuclear-powered electricity, your military equipment. All of them depend on resources that come from places you have never visited. Places like Niger, like Gabon, like Côte d'Ivoire. Places that France quietly controls through a web of secret agreements, military bases, and financial manipulation. France is not just a European nation. It is an empire that never truly ended. It simply changed its disguise. From military conquest to economic conquest. From direct rule to indirect control. From colonies to client states. Right now, as you sit there reading this, French troops are stationed in multiple African countries. French companies extract billions of dollars worth of minerals and resources. French banks control the currencies of entire nations. And almost nobody is talking about it. One number, 85%. That is how much of the global supply of a critical nuclear mineral comes from a country where France holds exclusive extraction rights. A country that remains one of the poorest on Earth. While France is the world's largest nuclear energy producer. This is not a conspiracy. This is not a theory. This is a system. A system designed to last forever. A system designed to keep Africa dependent and France powerful. A system that has been operating in plain sight for over 60 years. So let's begin. Let us go beyond the headlines, beyond the rhetoric, beyond the lies. Let us uncover the truth that France has spent decades hiding. To understand what is happening now, we have to go back, not to the last election, not to the last decade, but to the scramble for Africa. In 1884, European powers sat around a table in Berlin and divided the African continent like a cake. No Africans were invited. No Africans were consulted. They simply drew lines on a map and claimed entire nations as their property. France walked away with the biggest slice, nearly a third of the continent, from the Mediterranean to the Congo, from the Atlantic to the Red Sea. It was the second largest empire in history. For decades, the French ruled with brutal efficiency. They extracted gold, diamonds, rubber, timber, and human labor. They forced children into schools that taught them to be French. They forced men into mines that killed them slowly. They forced women into servitude that stripped them of their dignity. And they told themselves it was for their own good, the civilizing mission, the white man's burden, the lie that they were bringing progress to backward people. But the truth was far uglier. The French colonial system was designed to make France wealthy. Period. African lives were expendable. African cultures were inferior. African aspirations were irrelevant. Then came the wars of independence. Bloody, brutal, unforgiving. Algeria, Vietnam, Guinea. One by one, the colonies broke free. Or, so the world was told. Because here's the secret that nobody tells you. The French never truly left. They simply changed the terms of the deal. From direct control to indirect control. From governors to puppet leaders. From taxation to debt. In 1960, as countries across Africa gained formal independence, France signed secret agreements with most of them. Agreements that gave France control over their resources, their currencies, their militaries, their foreign policy. The trap was set again, and Africa walked right into it. The hidden power of France lies in three things: the CFA franc, the resource contracts, and the military bases. First, the CFA franc. It was created in 1945. It is still used by 14 African countries today, and it is controlled entirely by the French treasury. Every nation using the CFA franc is required to deposit 50% of their foreign reserves in a French account. They cannot print their own money. They cannot set their own interest rates. They cannot make their own economic decisions. This is not sovereignty. This is a financial prison. And here's the part that will make you angry. The CFA franc is pegged to the euro. When the euro appreciates, African exports become more expensive. When the euro depreciates, African imports become more expensive. In either case, Africa loses, and France wins. Second, the resource contracts. France has exclusive extraction rights to uranium in Niger, to oil in Gabon, to cobalt in the Central African Republic, to cocoa in Côte d'Ivoire. These contracts are secret. They are never debated in parliaments. They are never reviewed by courts. They simply exist. French companies extract billions of dollars worth of resources every year, and the host countries receive a fraction of the value, a small percentage, a fixed fee, a kickback to the elite. The rest goes to Paris. Third, the military bases. France has more military bases in Africa than any other foreign power. They are stationed in Senegal, in Gabon, in Côte d'Ivoire, in Chad, in Djibouti. They are there to protect French interests, not African interests, not democracy, not human rights, just French control. Whenever a leader threatens this control, France intervenes, sometimes with elections, sometimes with coups, sometimes with assassinations. The Franc network is real. It is ruthless, and it has been operating for decades. Now here's the truth that will shock you. France does not just control the resources. They control the narrative. French media rarely reports on these issues. French schools barely teach this history. French politicians refuse to apologize. The silence is the system, but the silence is breaking, and the world is starting to pay attention. Let us trace this outward, from uranium mines of Niger to the nuclear power plants of France, from the cocoa farms of Côte d'Ivoire to the chocolate factories of Europe, from the oil fields of Gabon to the gas stations of Paris. You cannot turn on a light in France without African uranium. You cannot drive a car without African oil. You cannot eat chocolate without African cocoa. You cannot use a phone without African cobalt. France is dependent on Africa, and Africa is enslaved by that dependency. But here is what the world is starting to realize. France is not the only player anymore. China has arrived. Russia has arrived. Turkey has arrived. The United Arab Emirates has arrived. They are all competing for Africa's resources, and Africa is realizing that it has choices. In the Sahel, where France once ruled, its influence is crumbling. Mali expelled French troops. Burkina Faso expelled French troops. Niger expelled French troops. They are turning to Russia, turning to China, turning to anyone who offers a better deal. This is not just about France. This is about the entire Western-dominated global order. If France loses Africa, Europe loses energy security. If France loses Africa, NATO loses strategic depth. If France loses Africa, the global balance of power shifts dramatically. And there is a generational shift happening. Young Africans are no longer accepting the old narratives. They are no longer accepting the old leaders. They are no longer accepting the old deals. They are demanding change. They are demanding freedom. They are demanding dignity. In Lagos, in Nairobi, in Dakar, in Abidjan, a new generation is rising. They are educated. They are connected. They are angry. And they are refusing to be silenced. The protests are growing. The coups are multiplying. The rhetoric is intensifying. Something is breaking. Something is changing. And France is terrified. But here is the darkness that no one wants to acknowledge. France's loss of influence is not good news for everyone. The vacuum is being filled by authoritarian powers. Russia's Wagner Group is operating across the Sahel. China's Belt and Road Initiative is building infrastructure with high-interest loans. Turkey is expanding its influence with soft power. The Gulf states are buying up port assets. The alternative to France is not automatically democracy. It is not automatically freedom. It is simply different masters. And the young Africans who are fighting for change may end up with the same exploitation, just from different faces. The United States is also watching. The Pentagon has focused its attention on the Sahel. But America's attention is distracted by Europe, by the Middle East, by the Pacific. Africa is not the priority. And France knows this. So the pivot is happening. France is trying to reimagine its relationship with Africa, talking about partnership, talking about equality, talking about mutual respect. But the words are cheap when the contracts remain unchanged. And there's another threat. Climate change. The Sahara is expanding. The farmers are moving. The conflicts are escalating. The resources are becoming scarcer. The pressure is building. And when the pressure becomes too great, the system will break. This is not panic. This is a warning. Delivered calmly. Delivered clearly. Because the truth is far more dangerous than any fiction. The era of French control is ending. But what comes next is uncertain. And uncertainty in a nuclear age is the most dangerous thing of all. So what does the future look like? Two paths. Two futures. In the first path, France adapts. They genuinely reform the CFA franc. They renegotiate the contracts. They apologize for the past. They build a new relationship based on equality. Africa grows. Europe grows. The world benefits. But this path requires political will. It requires courage. It requires leadership that is willing to give up power. And history does not suggest that France is ready to do that. In the second path, the collapse comes. France loses all influence. The military base is close. The contracts are canceled. The CFA franc is abandoned. Africa turns fully to China, Russia, and Turkey. A new Cold War emerges on the continent. Proxy conflicts erupt. Resources are weaponized. The global economy is destabilized. This path is terrifying because it means chaos. It means conflict. It means suffering. It means war. And in the middle of it all, ordinary people pay the price. The question is not whether France will lose Africa. The question is what will replace them, and whether the world is ready for the consequences. The map never lies, but the people draw it always have a reason. We just saw how France controls what Africa cannot live without. But there is one nation quietly positioning itself to take all of it. That is the next journey. Which future do you believe? Future 1 or Future 2? Comment and let us know what you think. And subscribe to Atlas Beyond so you never miss the next journey.